Hello, I hope that you are doing great. We are going to conclude the chapter 13 by using the two previous videos in our application. And basically what we are going to do in this video is to make a query to our database. We are going to store that information into a JSON string and to pass this information from the server to the browser. And in the browser, basically what we are going to do is to transform that string into a JSON object that we can use in the browser, and we are going to use some grabs to deploy that information, to disclose that information to the user. Okay, then let's move on. I am here. The first thing that we have to do is in the layout.html we have to import the information from Chart.js. Basically, if you go to the web page of the course, we are here in the last part, and here you have the link to the Chart.js. Here basically you have all the information. This is like bootstrap and font aways on all these things, and then basically the first thing that you have to go to the get started. You are going to have basically a link that we have to introduce in the CDN link that we have to introduce in the layout.html file to access to this information, to access to this all the functionalities that offered by Chart.js. Okay. Then this is the first thing. The second thing that we are going to do is basically to access to we are going to make some queries and some transformation of the data. I'm not going to type everything because this will make the video very long, and it's basically repeating steps that we have done so far many times. Then I will go to the web page of the course and I will go to the GitHub final, and here I go to cap, I go to the Carbon app folder and to the roots, and here basically you have to go to the very bottom, in which basically we are going to have the Carbon app your data, and here you have the missions by category. I'm going to copy this, control copy, and then we go here, we paste this information, and I will explain step by step what we are doing. Okay, the first thing that we are doing is to make a query to extract emissions by the means of transport in the last 5 days. The second thing that we are doing is basically transforming, we are creating an array because we need to pass this information in a kind of a very nice format, in such a way that we can make nice plots. And then basically I'm going to create two arrays, one in which I have the emissions by each single mean of transport, and the second one is going to be the label with the type of transport. And this is basically what we are doing here. I am creating two empty arrays, and then I'm going to make a loop over this dictionary, and I'm going to extract from that dictionary the key that is going to be the transport and the emissions, and I am going to store that information. In case that we don't have any emission, for example, we don't have, the user don't use the bus or don't use the car or the ferry, instead of having not a number, I'm going to have a 0, because otherwise we are going to have very poor graphs. This is the reason because I creating as well this array with all zeros. Okay, this is the first thing. The second query that we are going to do is that we want to have the emissions by date. We want to have not only the emissions by means of transport, but also the emissions by in the last days, basically. And then I will do this, and I go again here, and then I have to go here, emissions by date. I copy this, control copy, then I go here and I paste this information here. Basically, I will explain this as well. Is basically we are creating here a query in which basically we are taking the emissions and the days, and we are storing, we are creating two empty arrays, one for the emissions and one for the dates, and we are making a loop over the dictionary, and we are storing the emissions and the day. That's all. Okay, the last step that we have to do is to transform. This is basically now is Python arrays, but we need, as we have seen in the previous video, the information from the server to the browser is always transferred in a string, and then we have to use a JSON, the JSON package, to transform this Python array into a JSON string. And this is what we are going to do in the very bottom. We have to go to the routes here, and basically here we have to render the template, and we have to pass this information in such a way that we can use it when we are going to plot it. And basically this is the last step. Here basically we have emissions by transport. This is going to be equal a JSON.dumps emission transport. Okay, then we also need to make another transformation. It's over time emissions. This is going to be also a JSON dumps, and here we pass emission transport. That's all, and we place a comma here. Okay, this is all the information that we need in the routes, and now we have to move to the your data HTML, and here we have to also to introduce some modifications. Okay, the first thing that we need to do is to define the boxes or the canvas in which we are going to plot this information, and this is basically what we are doing here. I'm going to go to the terminal, new terminal, and here I'm going to Python application.py. Will explain you what we are doing. I open this, I go to the Carbon app, I go to your data. Basically what we have done in this first step is defining these two boxes here. This is the canvas in which we are going to make our plots, okay? And then the next thing that we have to do is we go here again, go to minimize this, the terminal, because we don't need it, and this is the first thing. And now inside the JavaScript we have to basically to do two things. The first thing is to transform the information, the JSON string that we have created, into a JSON object that we can manipulate in the browser, and then we are going to plot the data, that information. And then again, I'm not going to plot this because this is to type this, because this will take really a long time. Then I have to go again to the GitHub account, to the final, and then I go here to the Carbon app. Now we have to go to the templates, to the Carbon app folder, and here we have the your data HTML. We go to the bottom here. Basically we have the emissions, and then I have to copy all this information from the line 122 to the line 187. I copy this and I paste it here, I save it, I go to verify that everything works fine, then I go to my web page, I refresh it. Okay, this is working. Then this is a good signal. We didn't make any typo when we place or we don't paste the information in the wrong place. Now I will explain you the code. Okay, basically here we have two things. The first thing is that we have we have transformed the emissions by transport, that is a string. We have transformed this into a JavaScript object, that is basically by using this JSON.parse. The second thing that we have introduced is some kind of code that came by default with Chart.js to make the graphs nicer. And the last thing that we are doing is basically here, what we are doing in this part is basically we are telling to the computer that we have to plot this in the canvas that we have created at the very beginning. This is the ID of this canvas, and then basically we want to plot this in this specific box. Then we introduce the labels for the different transports. We introduce a background color for each single means of transport and a title, and here basically we have the data and all these things. It's basically, and we have here the type of chart that we want to have. And here the data is the emissions transport data that we have transformed before. This is the JavaScript object that we have transformed by using JSON.parse. Okay, this is the first graph. That is basically, if I go here, this is this first graph that you have here. It's a pie chart. The next, what we are going to analyze is how to make this line here, okay? And this is what we are going to do right now. I want to show you the code. Here basically you have overtime emissions, and here basically in these overtime emissions, basically what we have is, again, we use a JSON parse to transform the emissions into, that is a string, into an object, a Java object. And we also need to transform the dates into, that is also a string, into a Java object. And then basically we use this is going to be a line. This is basically this is the ID with the this is the canvas that we have created at the very beginning to know where we to locate this graph. And this is the labels, and this is the border color, and this is the line tension, and this is some characteristics that came basically from the Chart.js. I suggest you to go to that web page and check all the different graphs that you have and all the possibilities, and then try to play a little with that, okay? And then is basically this line that we have here with the emissions by date. The other graph is the kilometers. Instead of having the emissions, we have the kilometers, and then you have the code there. Okay? Basically, this concludes this last video, in which basically what we have learned is to make a query to our database. We are storing that information into a Python dictionary, but this is not possible to pass that information from a Python dictionary from the server to the browser. Then basically what we have done is to transform, by using JSON.dumps, is to transform that Python dictionary into a JSON string. And then once that we move this information to the browser, we have to transform that JSON string into a JavaScript object. And later on, once that we have the data in some JavaScript object, we have used Chart.js to make two different graphs. One is a pie graph and another is a line graph. Okay? Hope that you have enjoyed the video, and see you in the next video.